What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's spoiler-filled discussion of John Wick Chapter 4, the newest film in the John Wick franchise, which is directed by Stahelski. Okay, so I originally wasn't going to do a spoiler discussion for this film. Maybe I should, but I originally wasn't going to do one because I feel like this is a movie that didn't need a spoiler discussion, even though it has spoiler stuff in it. But then we had the death of Lance Reddick. I don't mean to laugh, but we had the death of Lance Reddick this week, and of the recording of this video. And I feel like, you know what, I'm going to talk about this because it's going to be interesting to see the reactions to audiences when they see what happens to Lance Reddick in the first 5 minutes of this movie. I did say spoilers, so Lance Reddick passed away, unfortunately. It's very, very sad. I love Lance Reddick. I loved him in The Fringe. I loved him in that Funny or Die sketch. He was really he had a lot of fun moments in that Resident Evil TV series, for as bad as it was. But he unfortunately passed away. Why he passed away, he said natural causes, but it was probably like a cancer or something like that. But with that said, the big shocking moment was going to be John Wick or Keanu Reeves' death by the hands of Donnie Yen's character, and it was an amazing scene. But I wanted to talk a little bit about Lance Reddick. Lance Reddick, of course, played the concierge character in this franchise. Survives all the way through the insanity that was 1, 2, and 3. They had that crazy battle sequence at the end of 3, which I thought was going to be the end of Lance Reddick's character. It wasn't. But as we see in this movie, Bill Skarsgård plays the Marquis. He's an individual that's basically risen up in the ranks. He's now kind of one of the lieutenants or one of the people in charge of this group of individual assassins and stuff like that. And because of the stuff in John Wick Chapter 3, Chapter 2, Chapter 1, John Wick is now, he's now basically excommunicado. He's basically on the run. They thought he was killed in the third film, but he wasn't, as we see. And basically, the Marquis calls upon, with the help of the Order, to go see him. And, this is why, of course, Ian McShane's character, which is the manager, and, of course, the concierge played by Lance Reddick, they know something. Basically, the manager or Ian McShane's character knows that this is the end of his Continental, and so they go to see the Marquis, and basically Ian McShane's character says it's not going to end well, and basically what ends up happening is he thinks he's going to be killed. This is not what happens, but there's a whole big discussion with the Marquis, with of course Bill Skarsgård's character, and instead of Ian McShane's character being killed, it's of course Lance Reddick's character that's killed. And that wasn't. It was shocking at the time because in these films, especially, I didn't realize this was going to be the last film in the John Wick saga. There's always going to be that one character that dies. And it's usually a Lance Reddick style character when it comes to the nature of it. It's like Loki and, of course, Avengers Infinity War. It's those types of characters that it's like the Hemdell character, the Idris Elba character. It's the one character that you really love that just ends up dying. And, of course, it was Lance Reddick's character. And it wouldn't have been as shocking if it weren't for the fact that, and it's really sad to say, and I keep laughing. I laugh in a very sad state of affairs. It isn't for the fact that Lance Reddick dies in the movie. It's the fact that he died a week before in real life, before the movie. And it's going to be interesting to see how people react to that because it happens very early in the movie. It's Lance Reddick dying. He literally just died, and he was a beloved actor. And people love this franchise, and it's going to hit harder than most people think because, you think about it with Lance Reddick dying and just how that is affecting the movie. It's like when Paul Walker died, but on it's a little smaller scale, but it's like when Paul Walker died. There was a little bit of time to come to a justifiable situation where you could understand that, you can you're going to go in sad, and this movie's going to make a lot more money, but it hits hard because it's an actor that you were beloved of this franchise, and once again, he's a very beloved actor to begin with, from stuff like The Wire. But it was a very interesting thing to see when I've seen that movie. I saw it like a week and a half ago of this recording, and here it is about to be released, and I couldn't tell anyone that he died because nobody wants to know the secrets of this movie, which is understandable. That's why when I do a spoiler discussion, it doesn't release till after probably halfway through the first showtime of the movie when it first releases. That way, the people who really want to see it are going to see it. So when they see my review, all that good stuff. But I had to talk about that. It's very interesting. It's very weird and ironic and melancholy in a lot of respects because it's going to hit harder than it would have in an original sense. So it's going to be very sad to see what people react to when they see this movie because they're going to talk about the fact that he dies in the movie and he died in real life just a week prior. So it's a really interesting thing. It's a kind of an interesting stone in the movie, but it's not what it still makes the movie more impactful. But the movie's already impactful to begin with, because this is a movie about legacy. It's a movie about what you choose and who you choose, what your effects are on people. And you ultimately keep this going because John Wick is a character that has been on a revenge quest for the high table, the high order, whatever you want to call them, since the very first movie after his dog was killed, and he's been brought back into the assassin world. He's been basically murdering left and right. There's so many people that die in all these movies. It's kind of crazy. He has more deaths per square inch than the Drake in the Uncharted movies. But what I love about this movie is it has stakes, like the other movies do, but even more so. It has personal, like taking all of it upon yourself to rectify the situation. It just has great characters in it. The story is not what I would call the greatest well written, but it's never been the most well written story to begin with. But I think Keanu Reeves has just kind of owned this character. He's a character or an individual that is just well beloved for his humanity when it comes to a person of stakes that he is. So you can kind of see that in John Wick. You know that he's a very dangerous individual. He's going to take down the people he needs to take down. And it is a little beyond reasonable logic of how he survives a lot of these like very dangerous, disturbing falls and shots. And it's crazy what John Wick goes through in this movie, but it's also crazy that he has to take on his old friend, who's played by Donnie Yen, who is a blind martial arts master assassin. And Donnie Yen, and I've heard this said many times before, is one of the great martial arts action people of all time. He's like one of the greatest, and there's a reason for that. You can see it in this movie, just how good he is at not only being a very low-key individual, but also being a very just kind of like in your face. Like, he knows how to take down people. He's been very good at that in his martial arts movies throughout the year. He was good at that in Rogue One. He's fantastic in that in this movie. He's a standout. And I love what he and Keanu Reeves bring to the table when they are old friends. When he's put in this scenario where he basically has to save his daughter, in order to save his daughter, he has to basically take down his old friend of John Wick, because John Wick has caused so many problems for the high table. Marquis wants him out of the mix. He basically does what he says because there's nothing he can do about it. And I just kind of love that. I love the idea of Hiroyuki Sanada in this movie, how Donnie Yen goes up against him. And Donnie Yen's not after Hiroyuki Sanada's character. Hiroyuki Sanada basically owns a Continental, or runs a Continental, which is, as we learn, is harboring John Wick in portion of this movie, and the high table order, Marquis, whatever. They all know this, and they're after him, and they're going to shut down the Japan Tokyo Continental. But the reason I bring up this portion of the Hiroyuki Sanada character is because you see how well positioned Donnie Yen's character is, how sad his character is, how he doesn't want to do any of this, but he has no choice. And there's a lot of dimension to that. Even though the story isn't perfect, the idea of these characters are, and that's what makes this movie so it makes it so kinetic and so real and so interesting. Like I said, having Donnie Yen play another blind character makes the stakes much more interesting. I found that just really fascinating and really intriguing and just fun. And I just love everything that Donnie Yen does in this movie. And watching him take on Hiroyuki Sanada and John Wick, the idea of just like how John Wick and John Wick and Donnie Yen kind of fight against each other. Then they help each other. Then there's that duel at the end, which is kind of awesome. It's just, there's a love there, but they know they have a purpose, and that purpose is unfortunate for them to be enemies. And it really is sad to see. It's really kind of a crazy thing, and I just love everything about it. And just, you see it throughout the story, throughout the 2-hour and 50-minute runtime of this movie. And there's, like I said, there's a ton of people in this movie. You know, like I said, the stuff between Ian McShane and Lawrence Fishburne, and of course Keanu Reeves as the three characters that are kind of on the same side is really interesting. The back and forth between Ian McShane and John Wick, the back and forth between Ian McShane and of course Bill Skarsgård. The idea behind Ian McShane knows that if John Wick doesn't succeed, he will die. There's a lot of fun there. And then you bring in Clancy Brown as like this individual who is working for the high table that that gives him ultimatums. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this movie. Like I said, it goes all over the place a lot of times, and there's stuff that doesn't make any sense. But I love what Bill Skarsgård is doing in here. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's a great little, interesting villain that doesn't have a huge purpose, but he's more just that individual to keep the story going along by introducing the new villains. Of course, they have a lot of the same stuff they've repeated in a lot of the other movies when it comes to the amount of money people could get paid if they take down John Wick, which keeps going up, which brings in Shamier Anderson, who at first is targeting down John Wick, but he's trying to do it to raise the amount of... This is my only problem with this movie is Shamier Anderson's character. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he's a great assassin. He has a dog, which is fantastic. I love what this franchise does with dogs, because you see it with like Halle Berry's character at the very beginning of this, or John Wick Chapter 3. They use them to a really great effect, and whenever somebody hurts one of the dogs, it is basically full tilt violence at that point. And I love that. I love the idea of like Shamier Anderson's character going, bite the nuts or something like that, and they go and attack the nuts, and they're just like, they pop out like raptors in Jurassic Park. It's fantastic. But what Shamier Anderson's character's point in this movie is, I don't really understand. I know he's an assassin. I know he's good at tracking people, but his character at the very end of this movie, when the duel's happening, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, to be fairly honest. I don't understand if he was raising the amount of money of this person, John Wick, to make the Marquis suffer. I don't know. Hopefully they take that character and they expand upon it if they do like spinoffs or anything like that, because I think Shamier Anderson's character could be a really interesting spinoff character, maybe in like a TV show or maybe like his own movie or something like that, to give this franchise a little more understanding of who these characters are, because he is a lot of fun in this movie, and there's a great action sequence with him in like a hotel room, and then him in like when we see Scott Adkins' character. There's a lot of fun with him, and I guess I don't understand what the purpose of his character was outside of tracking down John Wick. He's very good at doing it, but he just really doesn't serve a purpose to me personally. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see what happens if they use his character later on. Now that leads into the stuff with Rina Sawayama and of course Hiroyuki Sanada, where they are daughter and father. They both, of course, run the Japanese Continental. She's the concierge. He's the manager. There's a huge battle sequence in the beginning when the High Table or the Marquis group of people go and attack the Continental to bring back John Wick. They, of course, you see Rina, of course, do her thing. She's a badass samurai swordsman, badass like assassin. Hiroyuki, of course, is a badass assassin. It leads to the confrontation between Donnie Yen and, of course, Hiroyuki Sanada. They battle in this like really cool kind of like, it reminds me a little bit of Kill Bill when between Lucy Liu and, of course, Uma Thurman. It, of course, doesn't end well for Hiroyuki Sanada, but the funny, or not funny, but the interesting thing about the whole thing is not the fact that Hiroyuki dies, but he dies with honor. He believes he's dying with honor. He believes he's dying to protect his daughter. His daughter's, telling him to stop. Donnie Yen's character is telling him to stop, but he doesn't stop. And I find that impactful. I find that a great scene, just for the simple fact that though Hiroyuki can leave, he's there to protect John Wick, who's a friend of his. He's there to protect his daughter, and he will do it to the death. And of course, he's not going to survive, and that's exactly what happens in here. But it'll lead into the after credit scene where, of course, the Rina character, I think her name's Akira or something like that, she basically says, I'm going to come after you, and so on and so forth. Hiroyuki dies, and it's just a beautifully done sequence. It's well shot, well acted. The action's great. John Wick is able to leave. There's, like I said, the big battle action sequence between John Wick and Donnie Yen, and the big Continental thing, which is one of the best action sequences in the movie. I love that scene. It's very impactful. It's heartfelt. And it really shows how well the movie plays when it plays out in this kind of effect of nature and effect of human being and consciousness. Once again, Japanese culture is known for their honor, so this makes a lot of sense. So then it leads into, John Wick trying to basically track down who the Marquis is. It leads into him needing to not be excommunicado so he can challenge Bill Skarsgård's Marquis into a duel. And this is where we meet Natalia Tena, who of course was in Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, and stuff like that. And she basically says, we are going to send you to this guy named Killa, and you have to give, I think it's like his gold teeth or something like that. But this leads into a Scott Adkins role in this movie, who plays Killa, who is he's like a penguin. He's like a crime lord, I guess you could say, in Germany. And I don't know what people think about Scott Adkins. I know he's pretty popular in the action martial arts scene, but he is probably one of the best. He's probably the standout of this movie outside of like Hiroyuki Sanada and Amy Kwan or Donnie Yen, as an individual that is just so over the top, so silly, so bonkers that it absolutely is amazing to watch. It's so fun. The whole sequence between him, Donnie Yen, Keanu Reeves, Shamier Moore at the poker table is fantastic. The Shamier Anderson and Donnie Yen fight a bunch of other people. John Wick goes after Killa after the whole big sequence. There's basically Killa is a martial arts master in a fat person's body. He basically brutally beats down John Wick, but John Wick is a superhero at this point. So John Wick takes his licks and it kind of keeps on ticking. We see Killa get stabbed a couple times. It's fantastic. And it basically leads to a very brutal sequence where John Wick throws Killa or whatever he does down the set of stairs and basically breaks his neck, gets his teeth, but he basically is able to go back. He gets the gold teeth, and he's basically able to go back and be part of a family again of like assassins or whatever. But I got to give a lot of credit to Scott Adkins. He absolutely delivers in this role. It's brutal, it's violent, it's great, it's silly, it's over the top. And it's absolutely fantastic of a piece of John Wick lore at this point. So I give a lot of credit to Scott Adkins. It's one of my favorite parts of the movie. Got the biggest cheers and laughs, and it's great. But this, of course, leads to the end of the movie, which is I think 45 to 50 minutes long. It has my favorite set action piece of all time in this franchise, and basically John Wick needs to get to this chapel as per rules. By 6 a.m. the next morning, he's going to face off against Bill Skarsgård. Bill Skarsgård's like, no, I'm going to use Donnie Yen against you. You're going to be a part of a duel with 2 pistols. And as John Wick does what John Wick movies do, it's not going to be very easy to get there because Bill Skarsgård, the Marquis character, offers a $40 million bounty to take down John Wick, which leads into a nonstop, very exhausting action sequence where John Wick goes through this battle sequence or this action sequence. I think it's the Arc de Triomphe and stuff like that. Then it leads into other parts of the city. Then it leads into, we've seen earlier with these really cool guns where they blow, basically you can shoot somebody and cause them to explode in flames. Well, there's an action sequence, I think is a one take or close to a one take, where it shifts from he goes into a building, John Wick goes into a building, and he shifts upward. This camera shifts upwards, whether a dolly or a virtual camera or whatever. And you see, if you've ever played the game Hotline Miami, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where we see from the top, this was also used in Minority Report, when their little machines are looking for John Anderson's character. And we see this crazy action sequence where John Wick is being chased after by all these people who want the money. They're all assassins. And we have a kind of Warriors type situation where a woman's talking on the radio. It's very much like it's very much a Warriors homage. But basically he's taking down all these characters, as well as Shamier Anderson's also taking down these characters because he wants to go after John Wick. And we see John Wick get a hold of those guns, and we just see him taking down fools with that gun. We see every time he shoots someone, they explode into flames. They die. He uses like the barrel of the gun. Everything about it is it's blowing my mind because it's one of the greatest action sequences I've ever seen. This is full of great action sequences in this movie, but it's shot well. If there are cuts in it, it is done very smoothly. You can't tell. And it's so amazing to watch. It really is. It kind of, it allows your excitement to just glow through the roof and stuff like that. And I found it so incredible. And then just like you see the dog, and the dog gets hit by there's this character that seems to never be killed, but the dog attacks him and stuff like that. And it's just a great set piece that leads what John Wick has always been well to do, is just this whole great world of arsenal that John Wick has to his disposal that he's able to use. So he's constantly finding ways to take down the enemies while he's being attacked by them. And I just thought that scene was awesome. The fact that it's, like I said, above, it's looking down like God view or something like that is awesome. And it's an incredible scene. But it leads to the staircase sequence, which is like 10 to 15 minutes before John Wick has to get to where he needs to go. Because if he doesn't, the McShane character will be killed. It'll just be bad for John Wick and everything. John Wick will be executed and stuff like that. You do kind of have to let your logic and reasoning go out through the window with that scene because it takes longer than what it says in the movie. So he's going up the stairs. He's attacked by that guy who's unkillable. He's thrown down the stairs. He has 3 minutes to get back up the stairs. They're constantly fighting a bunch of people. It's like rising the level of a game or something like that. And they get to the chapel or whatever in the 3-minute time frame. But there's no way this fight sequence took like 10 minutes. It would have been like a 45-minute sequence. But it's a fantastic sequence. It really is. It's great. And then it leads to the duel where basically Donnie Yen and Keanu Reeves have to basically use pistols. They have to go a certain amount of feet away from each other, 40 paces or whatever. They have to shoot. If none of them gets hit, they have to go forward. They shoot, they miss, they go forward again. And that's when Donnie Yen gets a hit. And they go forward again. And then Donnie Yen and John Wick fire. And Donnie Yen, of course, hits John Wick with life-threatening injuries. But at that point, John Wick's still alive. And what's really great is the kind of twist on it where Bill Skarsgård's Marquis character is like, I'm done. I'm going to finish this off. And he takes the gun from Donnie Yen. But we find out that John Wick never actually took the shot. So therefore, he's allowed to take the shot. He kills Bill Skarsgård in the most amazing fashion ever. Donnie Yen basically is allowed to go back to his daughter. He's free. John Wick is free. The manager, McShane's free, and they dissolve their business. He's now excommunicado. He's no longer excommunicado, and everything goes free. But as we see, John Wick's been shot really, really dangerously. He's been shot with life-threatening injuries. And he and his friend Donnie Yen's character have one moment more, and he walks off, and of course John Wick dies. And that's officially the end of John Wick himself, and he's officially dead at the end of this franchise. And now I didn't really. Now at first I thought, oh, John Wick's just playing off. He's not really dead, but he's actually dead. We see his grave and everything. We see him finally go to rest. I didn't realize this movie was the last film in the John Wick franchise when it comes to John Wick. It doesn't mean there's a Continental TV series coming and stuff like that. But it's very poignant. That's the reason this movie is so long, because you have to wrap up a lot of ties for John Wick and dealing with his wife and the dog and everything. You have to kind of wrap up the stories of like the Ian McShane and Lawrence Fishburne, have John Wick's character finally get his due and rest, stuff like that. He doesn't take down the high table. He's told like, during points in this movie, he's like, when's enough? You know, when are you going to stop? He's like, I'm not going to stop till I take down a high table. But really, that's not the point of his character. His point is he needs to have some justice for everything that has been done to him. And he does it. He gets it. He wins. And he ends up paying the price for it and dying. But he is able to release his friend, his Donnie Yen's friend. He's able to get his just desserts, and he's able to do what he needs to do. And that's why this movie works as well as it does. Because even though John Wick, Keanu Reeves is the main focus, there are other characters that get their resolutions and stuff like that. So I thought that was really fascinating. And so at the end of this movie, we have an after credit sequence, and of course the Rina character, basically Donnie Yen's going to visit his daughter. He's now been let free. He's about to see his daughter with a bunch of flowers. The Rina character basically shows up. She has a knife in her hand, and it cuts to black. What that means, does she die? Does she doesn't die? It's all up in the air depending on what you think. But the funny thing about the whole thing is, I would love to see her character have some kind of spin-off, similar like Shamier Anderson, where we see like what she's like as an assassin. Maybe she did kill Donnie Yen's character, who knows? But Shamier Anderson, I think they could have a lot more structure and a lot more character development in their own spin-off. So that's how I feel. It's an interesting way to end the movie. And of course, like I said, it's cool, like I said. So we have the Continental coming, but that's another thing too. But like I said, that is my spoiler discussion for John Wick Chapter 4. Highly recommended if you like this franchise. Definitely worth the watch. But a lot of great moments, a lot of great payoffs, and of course, rest in peace, Lance Reddick. We will miss you. You were fantastic in everything you did. But with that said, that's going to do it. That's going to be my take, and highly recommend it if you haven't seen the movie yet. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What was your favorite action sequence in this film or any of the John Wick films? Did you love the idea of what this film does? If you hated it, tell me why. No big deal. I understand if you don't like this film, but otherwise, let me know. And otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.